What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am.
If you no talk, dem go beat you.
Na 2,500 they pay.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I am angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya, which America?
Accident to mark our place. Some people they die now.
This is Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Can we just bring in and welcome back to the breakfast this morning. Still a little rocky from our end this morning, but thank you very much for joining us. We're still talking of major topics across the country. One of the stories that we had shared earlier in the morning during the off the press segment was the presidency and of course the Lagos State government mourning and giving tributes to former Lagos State military administrator Ndubisi Kanu, who passed on aged 77, a phenomenal personality. And we're going to be talking about, his, life and the greatest moments that he shared with us before he eventually, passed on. He, between 1977 and 1978, he was governor of Lagos State. And of course, is one of the pioneer, persons who created what Lagos is today. Also had really strong views on true federalism. He also was one of those people who was, part of Ohanese and what it is today. The founding, members and, of course, one of the board, members of Ohanese and Igbo. We will be joined very soon. Yes, we'll be joined very soon by Ayodele Adewale, former chairman Amaward of who was, very close to Rear Admiral Ndubisi Kanu, to discuss more about this, give us insight into his life. Yes, indeed, Ndubisi Kanu was very outspoken, granted lots of interviews during his time. He was never shy to express his beliefs, his opinion on true federalism, how he felt that, we needed to return to the basics. He thought that Nigeria operated a unitary system of government. There was too much concentration of the power at the center, and he felt that every state should draft their own constitution. States should control their own resources, just like how we discussed with Mr. Inyechok this morning, how states should, in this time, if we're practicing true federalism, how states should be taking charge, of their own states' COVID-19 vaccines, making arrangements to purchase that to make sure that their own residents are safe. So he was a proponent of those. He was a pro-democracy activist. He really advocated for the 1993 annulled election of MKO Abiola, exactly for him to be reinstated as president, and all of that. He just had very strong ideals of what Nigeria should be. So many statesmen, Tinubu, social cultural groups are very pouring tributes, to him. And we're glad to know that we now have our guest, Mr. Ayodele Adewale, to speak with us on this issue. But that will be right after this break. So do stay tuned to Plus TV Africa. The breakfast returns in just a minute.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I'm angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya, which America?
As it then do mark our place, some people they die now.
This is PLOS TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Welcome back. We are really having a rocky morning this morning. It's pretty interesting to see.
Exactly.
But
and
you know, before we get into, I think much later we'll be talking more about Nnubisi Kanu. One question, you know, that will come up in the conversation is about him being a truly reformed Democrat. It was one of the major points that was made in 2014 with the current administration, you know, and being a converted, a reformed Democrat, you know, and that's President Muhammadu Buhari. How much of that was Nnubisi Kanu? We'll talk about that much later. But for now, let's go into one of the biggest stories in the world today. President Donald Trump has been impeached for the second time. And the details of all of this, what does this mean, you know, to the American democracy? What does this mean to him as a president? We've invited to join us this morning once again, Mr. Ezekiel Nyaitok. Thank you very much for staying with us and for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And we also,
sorry, I'm on the go.
Yeah, we also have Mr. Paul Ejime, our international affairs expert. Thank you very much for your time also.
Thank you, Amarige. How are you doing?
We're fantastic this morning.
So I'd like to quickly bring in Mr. Ejime, who's joining us. Addressing his supporters last week, Trump said, and I quote, and this was after he lost the November 3rd election, he said this: "I know that everyone will be marching over to the Capitol building peacefully and patriotically to make your voices heard. Today, we'll see whether Republicans stand strong for our elections and country." But we eventually saw on Wednesday, you know, January 6th, that that election, or rather that march to the Capitol building, was not peaceful. At least five people got injured, including one Capitol Hill police officer. And now the move has been made for Trump's impeachment for the second time, 13 months after he was first impeached. So what do you think about this? What do you make of this?
Not actually injured. 5 people were killed, you know, in the clash between the security personnel and then the marchers, the Trump supporters. It was the lowest that America could have gone in the more than 200 years of its history. And remember, America is seen as the beacon of hope, of, you know, as mother of democracy. But it all went in flames on that day because it was the everybody from the both aisles of the Republicans and the Democrats, they were condemned. You know, this what has happened, and then it shows, you know, a very bad example for the world that America, that everybody was looking up to, could not live up to the bill. So they are still recovering from it. I think President Trump has now become a victim, a casualty, because he was the one that more or less ordered the supporters to march on the Capitol. Whatever you try as much as you can to deodorize it or put it in a very nice way. It wasn't. It was seen as you can from the debate on his impeachment that it was an irresponsible statement to make, and look at where it has landed America, and look at where it has landed Trump, the first American president to be impeached twice in office. It's not a badge of honor. I think he will live to rule that that day, that instruction that he gave his supporters. And again, the world, you see, this is one kind of act or that can embolden dictators across the world, because now when you talk to them, people like Museveni, you see what's in Uganda, what is happening to opposition there, and across Africa, it's not good, because they can cite it and say, well, if that can happen in America, who are we now, not to emulate America? So it was a very bad example, and I hope the world will learn from it, America will learn from it, and that it is about institution. By the way, American system and institution has shown that it can bounce back from an assault, an invasion.
Okay, Mr. Ejime.
Just to quickly clarify, actually 5 people died from the injuries that were sustained at the Capitol Hill. Family and friends identify them. They passed on from that insurrection on the Capitol Hill that they say.
Yeah.
Okay.
You already mentioned, a lot of lessons that, must be learned. There is a lot of angles to this also that I hope that we can speak on, in the time that we have. But I'm going to go to Ezekiel Nyai Talk now. You, of course, have been following this story right from, day one, right from the first impeachment also. But I want your thoughts on what lessons must be learned from all of this. As, of course, he has been impeached the second time.
Yes. 2 things. The first is that you must learn to listen to people when they speak and don't take him for granted. He might be impeached twice, but he will go down in history as one of the presidents in the whole world who kept his promises. Mr. Trump made several promises and we were busy laughing at him instead of listening to him. And when he got into office, he kept his promises. He told he was going to build a wall and we laugh at him. Today, he's kept his promise. He said he was going to deal with immigrants, and we didn't take him serious. Today we can see it. Virtually everything that Trump promised and we took for granted, or the Americans, not we, the Americans took for granted, I think they are seeing it come alive. So to that extent, it is a big plus for Mr. Trump that he's a man who keeps his promises. What that means is that Americans are not going to take people for granted anymore. When a politician says something, they will listen because the person might just keep his promises. Now that's like the flip side of Nigerians who either never ever promise you anything, or they tell you something and whatever they say, just forget it because they are not going to do it. So I think the lesson that we must learn is that we need to have leaders who keep to their promises, and we need to listen to the promises of these leaders. As concerning Mr. Trump, I think a lot of us don't really understand him. Mr. Trump is enjoying the ride, so to speak. He doesn't think like you think. His approach to things are completely different. He's probably seeing himself 2 ways. Number 1 is when he becomes a private citizen, to what extent has he laid the foundations for his business to thrive? Number 2 is that have we asked ourselves how a man like Mr. Trump got over 70 million votes? There are certain fundamentals that concern the people that we're not addressing. The concept of America first. Americans are suffering. The Native Americans, no, not Native Americans, because that's a wrong expression. What we may call the real Americans are seeing immigrants come in, and gradually they are seeing their country leaving them. So if Trump is not impeached, and not just impeached, but made such that he cannot come back to office, I'm going to tell you that 2 things are going to happen. Number 1 is that Biden is going to have a rough time because Trump is going to make life difficult for him. And the more unpopular that Biden gets, the more popular Trump becomes. And if he comes back on any platform at all to contest the elections, right, you can take this to the bank, Trump is going to win. Let me say this lastly because of time. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, let me say this lastly because of time. Last week on this program, I said that the people that followed Trump stupidly were going to pay dearly for it. And the American system is fishing out those people and punishing them. Okay? What lesson do we learn in Nigeria? Next time, people will not be in a hurry to, take foolish instructions, because Trump is going to go his way and enjoy his life, and those people are going to go and rot in jail. So we need to be careful. The youth need to be careful. When the politicians say, hey, go and do this, be careful, and let Nigerians learn to punish people as deterrent.
Let me step in here.
Next time they'll come out.
Let me step in here, to clarify some facts. I know you mentioned that Trump might be having a ride right now. He doesn't think like we do, and when he becomes a private citizen, he has a lot to gain. But the fact right now is that social media have banned him. Banks, businesses are cutting off from him. They're cutting off ties. We have no idea just how many businesses how many banks would want to do business with Trump or give him loans after his presidency. The Senate could vote to disbar him from contesting office again in 2023. And if Trump is eventually impeached, if the Senate convicts him, there's a lot Trump has to lose. His private FBI security detail, his pension, his travel allowances, and so many other things. So I just wanted to clarify that these are actually what Trump stands to lose just a minute. The facts are there. Banks are cutting off ties with Trump, and that's basically what we know right now, except that changes in the future, but that's what it stands. But I'm turning back now to our other guests. We see now that Trump, after the impeachment was announced by Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Trump came out to release a statement saying to his supporters that he should not fight, there should be no violence, no demonstrations. But don't you think this is sort of like medicine after death, since, the impeachment process is already, in process?
Yeah, I think that demolishes the argument by my fellow panelists, because in one breath he tells us that we should listen to Trump. In another breath he says those who listen to Trump stupidly will be punished. I think there's contradiction here. And so Trump, this is not where he wants to be. For him, I think he has capitulated. He has surrendered, but it's too late. Like you said, medicine after death. You see that in that statement, he never mentioned the election. He was now appealing. This is something he also have done. Leadership is about measuring the temperature of those that you are leading, to know when to, be tough and then when to be soft, to communicate and then take people along. He never did that. What promise did he make and then did he keep? The wall that he did, you can see how many kilometers did he do of all the wall that he promised. Look at the way he handled coronavirus. America bears the badge of, terrible badge of honor of having the highest number of victims of fatalities. That is not the way to go. And you saw how he will always be, he was quarreling with everybody from reporters to MPs. He always, and that was the fear. He created fear. The fear mongering that that was what made them, people were now asking, is it a Trump Democrat, Republican Party or a Republican Party? Nobody is now sure. But I can tell you there is a pullback. Look at the voting yesterday. It was bipartisan. About 10 Republicans, it never happened before, broke ranks. Many people are going to leave that ship. And nobody wants a loser. It was very simple. I can tell you that if Trump had moderated his rhetoric, perhaps he would have won this election. But he just went on the wrong side. And with that, you don't carry so many people. 70 or more million would have voted for him. But we can see what is happening now, that he's the loser, and then they're jumping ship and they will leave him.
Ms. Ejime, I'm going to come back to you on your expectations from the Senate. The first time that he was impeached for gross misconduct, I believe, abuse of power, actually. The Senate eventually didn't go through with removing him as president. I'm going to come back to you on what your expectations are with this one. Is it going to be the same or not? But I want Mr. Nyai Talk to clarify on his points, the points that he was making earlier about listening to Trump, and your reactions to Aneta's statements that this will do a lot of damage to him. as a person. Please go ahead quickly.
Yeah. Thank you. Two things. I think my brother there should listen to me well. Why did 74 million Americans vote for Trump? Right from the second month of Trump in office, very few people believed that he would survive 3 months. He survived 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 4 years, went to the poll, polled 74 million votes. We sit here and we do the analysis. The Americans, they say, he who feels it knows it. The Americans know Trump. They know the thing he stands for. They don't like him. But there are certain strong fundamentals that Strong has tried to bring in to say, look, this is our country and we need to take back our country. That's why he said America first. There was so much money that America was using to save the world while inside they were dying. And he cut off all those things. We didn't like it, but the Americans were able to have more jobs. Look at Trump's records in office. He had permit me to use this expression, he had a lousy personality and character. Lousy, absolutely so. But he's a genius. He's a genius. What makes him a successful businessman? What made him to be able to get the Republican ticket? What made him to be able to win election? He's a man who thinks outside the box. He doesn't think the way we do. And let me tell you about business. Citizen Trump is different from President Trump. The institutions can now say all these things, the banks. But the question is when it becomes private citizen Trump. Now, the banks are going to judge you based on the fundamentals of your business and not because you were impeached. Who cares about a man who was impeached? Their own is like, bring the books, let's look at it. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? So number one, I think that Trump has a lousy character, has a lousy personality, but I want to say that Trump has something that we need to study.
All right.
That's what I'd like to say.
All right.
I'm not admiring him. I'm just saying that there's something about Trump that gave him 74 million votes. What's that thing?
All right. Yeah, so let's now clarify. Yeah, Trump won by 74 million votes, but Biden won by 81 million votes. That's 7 million votes more. And according to the statistics, Biden's win is by far the most any presidential candidate has received.
No, you missed the
point.
I want to, please hold on.
Let's get 74 million votes. That's the point.
Mr. Ejime.
A man unpopular from day one, 74 million.
The facts, hold on, please. The fact is that the Trump and his supporters still contest the election. You know, whether, you know, it was marred by fraud or not. That's still a debate for Trump and his supporters. But the issue here now is that Trump has been impeached for insurrection, for inciting insurrection. And the aftermath of that right now is that Washington is on high alert. There's so many soldiers right now, according to how, you know, the White House will quantify it, that there are more soldiers in the White House now than in Iraq and in Afghanistan combined, because the FBI has put, you know, the states on alert that Trump supporters might come out to demonstrate more, you know, following Biden's impeachment, following Trump's impeachment. So what do you think about this? And do you think this will help in creating more security in the country, seeing that, you know, there's that threat that Trump supporters might still demonstrate?
Well, that is the thing that we're talking about, institutions.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, Mr. Ejime, you can go on.
Am I to come in on it?
Yes, please, Mr. Ejime.
Who?
Mr. Ejime, you can go on.
All right. So, okay, there's no time for me to really try to answer to some of the you know, what he's trying to build, because with all those things, the masquerade called Trump has been unmasked. It's now, you can see from the last statement that he made. And you were talking about the security. Look at the National Guards. It has never happened in America before that National Guards are called to the Capitol. Look at guys sleeping on the floor because they are now having to up the tempo, because Trump has gone rather, maybe not has gone crazy, and nobody's now sure of what he can do. What he's capable, you know, so he has so much raised the bar of negativity that the whole country is at alert. Is that the kind of somebody that anybody would like to do business with? I'm telling, if we can watch it and maybe we have time to come back on this your station to see that what my brother is saying there is the Trump has been demystified. He was a masquerade. The clothes have all fallen off. He's now on his own. He has more than $400 million debt to repay. And everybody is cutting out business with him. How can he recover? That is the issue. There is no, if he can't use his office, because that was what he was doing, trying to use his office to feather his economic nest. Now that has been demolished because of his character. You agree he's a lousy character, and he does not have what it takes to lead. That is what he has demonstrated. So back to the security, Americans have never seen it before. And an invasion, they call it domestic terrorism. That is what, look at the kind of adjective they are using to qualify what Trump has done. I bet you that it's likely that he will be banned from holding office in future. And that is not a good example. That is not what anybody should hold up. Nobody thought that he could go this far. Now he has gone, he has crossed the line.
I want you to go
and
on
he's not capable to lead.
Paul Ejime, I want you to go on and talk about your expectations from the Senate. What actions do you think they will take at this time? And of course, comparing it to the first time that he was impeached.
Yes, I think the second now going to the Senate for the charges to convict, because that is what it is. It's unlikely that the Republicans will do that. I think the message has already been passed by the House of Reps that now, listen, this man, everybody understands, even the Senate leader knows now, he has said as much that he will support impeachment. What we are now going into is semantics. He says, well, he cannot, the time is too short to do any, to take on that debate. But whether he will support it, I think he was likely going to support. And if he does, that will open the gate for other Republicans to follow. But it's unlikely that he will be convicted by the Senate, but the damage has already been done. Now, Democrats will be struggling to, extricate themselves from a Trump disaster. Trump has become a disaster that nobody wants to associate with. Those who were supporting him thought he could get a second term, but he didn't. He was the one that destroyed. He was his own worst enemy from what has happened. So I think that Senate people are now calling for unity, for peace, for reconciliation. President Biden is good at that. He did that while he was a senator and then vice president. He could try to, build a bridge, but Trump has really done so much damage that will make his job very difficult. I agree. But let's see what happens. The robustness of the American institution will likely stand, weather all that. But ask me if many people would have done without this kind of calamity that Trump has brought, not only to Americans, but to the world.
All right.
What are you going to tell your children about leadership?
Okay,
what countries look up to as a leader? America is seen as a global leader, but he has failed in the because.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ejime.
Mr. Nyayetok, I wanted to ask you, do you have hopes that, Trump possibly, or let's even bring this home now, that Nigerian politicians, African politicians, would learn anything from this regarding instituting strong systems that are independent from the executives, a strong judiciary, a strong legislation? Seeing that how it has all turned out for Trump, do you think that African leaders can be inspired, to do that? Mr. Nyayetok.
Okay, we seem to have lost sound with him. Paul Ejime, if you're still with us, I think you can go on. Mr. Nyayetok, can you hear us? Okay, Mr. Ejime, please go ahead. I think you can go ahead and take that question until we get back sound from Nyayetok. She's asking about the reaction from, Nigerian National Assembly and, how they, of course, would try and adopt some of the institutions that we have seen come into play in the United States.
I think there is everything to learn from that. You remember that there was some issue with Nigerian assembly where it was locked down and you saw MPs trying to climb to. I tell you that if it had happened in Nigeria, I don't think whether we will be able to handle it the way it was handled. And we have a lot to learn from there. The fact that the Congress men and women, they still came back in spite of that invasion, desecration. They still came back and then performed their duty of certifying the Biden victory. I wonder whether it would have been, it's not the same, we haven't seen such a circumstance, but we also learn from experience. What will happen is that perhaps the whole place will be locked down, and then there will be postponement, and then we'll be scampering about what to do. But you saw the robustness of the American system.
In the little time that we have.
Trump has not provided the kind of leadership that people will look up to. By the way, yesterday or so, look at Museveni in Uganda. When they were asking him how come, the way they are suppressing opposition. He said they are insurrectionists, using the American template. That is the bad example that we must all avoid.
All right.
But we can
Quickly,
also look at the best practices, things that work.
Mr. Ajime, apologies for interjecting. Quickly, there's another angle that I don't want us to miss out on. The actions by the Vice President, Mike Pence. Donald Trump had expected him to take certain actions to save his election, but obviously he didn't. There's also the perspective about allegiance to the Constitution and allegiance to the country that we've seen play out here. In Nigeria, not long ago, the National Assembly apologized to President Muhammadu Buhari for even the thought of impeaching him after he was summoned by the National Assembly. We claim to run similar systems, but our allegiance doesn't seem to be to the same things. Quickly speak on that, and if we have any talk, maybe you can also share with us. We're almost out of time. Please go ahead, Mr. Ajime.
Okay. Yes, you mentioned Pence. Have you mentioned you have seen Pence all over these 4 years until recently? He will always say, "My president." He was the closest ally of Trump. But what happened when he now came between personality and constitution? He went the way of constitution. That is the way it should happen in Nigeria. If we claim to copy the American system, that is what we will do. There is no sense in pandering to individuals. Please respect the Constitution, do what is needful, and do what will leave you a good legacy. Because people are watching. Whatever it is that you do will have repercussions. It has consequences. So that is what I would say to that, right. That where it comes to individuals and constitution, it is better to go to the because that was what Pence did. And then there is a lesson for everybody, for Nigeria, for Africa, and for the rest of the world.
Sadly, we lost sound with Mr. Ezekiel Nyaitok. Oh, he's back. Okay.
Oh, yes, he's back. Oh, yes, let's have you quickly react to that, what he's just mentioned, Mr. Ajime.
Yeah, the line between constitution and politics is a line between the politicians, whether you are an enlightened politician who understands that the constitution supersedes loyalty even to party, or you are a traditional politician where you live and die with what you call blind loyalty, where your loyalty is not to the constitution, but to your boss, to the man who put you there. That is why we don't have people who are elected by the people, but people who are put in there by their godfathers. And I think that for us, Nigerians need to come to learning that politics is not an all-comers affair. Politics is something you need to understand what it's all about. You need to understand the dynamics, the ramifications, the implications, and the essence of politics. That's why I'm happy that in Nigeria we started the School of Politics, Fix Politics Nigeria, and we need to take this serious. The media need to come in on it so that we start to have politicians who understand what politics is, who understand that your first allegiance is to nobody but the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Like my brother said, Pence was Trump's ally. And let me say, all through these 4 years,
Trump has done all sorts of things, but Pence was still with him. But a time came where, you know, they said you can go to with the law up to the altar. A time came when it had to do between personal interest and national interest. And Pence pitched his tent as an enlightened politician on the line of national interest. And finally, let me say this before I leave, because time might not permit me. Question number one is the impeachment. For a man that has a few days to go, what are they afraid of? I see him being not just impeached. I think Senate, in the interest of America, may go on to stop him from being eligible for future elections. Because if they don't stop him, his groundswell is not going to be going down. And if he goes in for another election, there may be a big surprise, like there was a surprise in 2020 that just finished. Right. So I think that in the interest of America, it might be necessary to find a way of stopping him from occupying any further office. If they don't stop him, then America might be in for a real hard time in the next coming whatever.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I do agree with you, just like Mitch McConnell said, you know, when they asked him why, I mean, it's just 7 days to Donald Trump's, the end of his tenure, why impeach him now? And he said it's the right thing to do, and it's never too late to do the right thing. Thank you very much, Mr. Iyatok and Mr. Ejime, for your time on The Breakfast.
Thank you. Pleasure having us.
All right. Good morning to you. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're, of course, moving into other topics on the breakfast this morning. It's been a pretty interesting one. Thank you so much for staying with us so far. We'll be back.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
I mean, how can anyone think that if I tell him to do a will, it means that I wish him dead? He himself is a dense person.
We have a lot of clergymen dabbling into this whole thing, mystifying it, concocting it with relating it to end time and the rest of it, and then creating a lot of fear.
Yes, you know there's unemployment. Yes, you know there's insecurity, and then we should be coming down. We shouldn't be talking. Seriously, just this week, you have increased the electricity tariff again from 2 naira to 4 naira.
4 naira.
So what is that? And then when we talk, Femi Adesina tells us we're waiting. Really? When Ghana is giving free electricity to citizens? Are you for real?
There's a joke about these monkeys because they come within the estates next door and they'll carry your pot of soup from fire. So now I know why. It's because we're the ones inhabiting their space.
We're the one inhabiting their space. The monkeys are protesting, and that is what we're having.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I have done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church, Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The special anti-robbery squad, who are now killing innocent citizens instead of dealing.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement. Then, let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I am angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, now so that they talk, you are going to Libya. Which America?
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue.
That we have this morning. It's a day to talk and celebrate the life of Rear Admiral Nnubisi Kanu, a former Lagos State governor between 1977 and 1978. We've invited to join us a close friend and ally of Nnubisi Kanu, Mr. Ayodele Adewale, the former chairman Amuod of in local government area. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the breakfast.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. I want you to start because it's said that you have been a very
a friend. That means I've belittled him. I'm more like a son to him, and it gave me a privilege to come very close with him during his lifetime, and I am one of his followers in Nadeco. Admiral Kanu, late Admiral Kanu was a wonderful man, was the leader of Nadeco, and was a true believer of democratic ethos. He held strongly all norms of democracy. He advocated for one Nigeria. He believes in Nigeria, and he believes in the rule of law. And he has always demonstrated this while he was alive, including whenever we had our NADECO meetings or other meetings to talk about the growth of Nigeria, especially when we organize programs to commemorate June 12. He was a very strong believer of June 12 and in Chief MKO Abiola, that if June 12 had been allowed to stay, that Nigeria would have moved forward and many of these quagmires that we face wouldn't have been. And Nigeria would have taken its position as one of the giants in Africa, if not the giant of Africa, but one of the giants in the world.
Fantastic.
Now, he was very active in Nadeco. He pushed for, when it came to the election, the June 12 election, 1993, that was annulled. He, pushed for Sani Abacha to step down and, for him to, I'm talking about MKO Abiola, to be recognized as president of Nigeria. Well, we saw all the controversy, the human rights abuse, how he was arrested, taken from Lagos to Port Harcourt, everything he faced. What's your comment on the fact that several years later, we still have opposition like that from the government in power, and opposition or activists who are seeking for, different causes?
I wouldn't call Admiral Kanu an opposition. I'll call him a realist. Remember that he was a member of the military council, and before his retirement, he was very active in the military circle. in the government circle. And while he was in government as a military officer, he did his best. He did his best, particularly using the rule of law and within the confines of the military law. He never went abroad of reality, knowing fully well that the people comes first, the people matter. And when Abacha decided to take the gauntlet of power, he was very frank in speaking truth to power and told him all that needs to be told. And when Abacha refused to listen to the words of wisdom and the words of the elders, he had to engage him, and I use the word cautiously. He engaged him in every matter that confronts the Nigerian state and every matter that concerns the violation of human rights. And that led to his incarceration. And beyond that, he wasn't afraid of death. He wasn't afraid that the Abacha junta would garnish whatever he stood for. He confronted them until democracy was reinstated in Nigeria. Such men are very, very limited now, but we still have them. We still have a lot of them. My prayer is that God forgives his sin, grant him everlasting peace, and may his soul continue to water and propel true democratic system in Nigeria that will guarantee the total rule of law in this country.
All right. I would also like, you to share with us, in the time that we have, I hope that we have all the time for the questions that I have to ask. But I want you to also share with us, because this conversation we're having is all about, paying respect to him and letting people understand who he was and, the values that he had. And it's a great thing that you're able to share this much. But I want you to share with us who he was as a person, aside politics, aside governance, aside his views with regards to federalism and all of that. Who was he as a person, as a father and as a friend, Ndubisi Kanu?
Admiral Kanu was a very simplistic man, very simplistic. You need to be with him. He does not relegate you. All he wants is that you bring to bear, or to actually to the table, what is needed to move any discussion forward. And I've been very privileged to sit around him. And whenever we have our meeting, I was the youngest, or actually I am the youngest amongst them. It's an age difference of between some of them and myself, of over 45 to 50 years. So you can imagine that gap. And beyond that gap, he would listen. Sometimes myself and him would sit alone in his office. We would discuss for several hours. He's fond of picking his paper and biro. Whenever a discussion starts, the first thing he will do is pick his paper, pick his pen, and he will listen to you with rapt attention. He will jot down every point that you bring out, and he will engage you on the basis of your point, and he quickly succumb to, if I might use the word, humbly, superior arguments. When he sees that your thoughts are very, very contemporary to the issue on ground, he quickly embraces it and convinces his peers to look towards your direction. He's a very detribalized man. He's a very warmly man. Whenever you go to his home, he settles you in very quickly, asks for what you drink. He wants you to just feel at home, feel free, and he never despised anybody. You should also remember that he is also one of the leaders of the Igbo nation. Yes. I remember a time when a little young lady needed some links to some of the Igbo leaders because she was having a program that concerned the cultural heritage of the Igbo. The first thing that came to my mind quickly was Admiral Kanu. And immediately I called him, come over. We brought the lady, and he gave her all the links that she needed. Even in my political life activity, he would call me that, young man, come. What is going on now in your party? How are you faring? What are your chances? Who do you need us to talk to? And all of that. You know, he is a very open man. He's a very open man. He's an open book. He allows you to read whatever you want to read in his mind, and he shares thoughts. It's rather saddening that such a person as punctual to your program. He will sit in his car as soon as...
For a return to true federalism, what comments can you make about that?
Well, these were part of what he spent most of his time, all of his time, doing while he was here in this mundane. And I can also share with you when we were all working for the People's Constitution during the Pro-National Conference Organization platform headed by the late Chief Anthony Enahoro of blessed memories. He had Dr. Bekor and Sonkuti as his vice, and Professor Waneshio Ika as his chief, as it should be, and of course the People's Police, because of our cultural attributes and all of that, and to strengthen our economy in this country. God has blessed this country so strongly. There is no part of this country that is not richly blessed, including the far north, where you have the Sahara strongly encroaching. God has carefully also placed human beings there to adapt to that situation. And of course, natural resources are going there. But don't forget that Dubai is a desert land. That is a place where they've been able to grow grass.
We're out of time. Mr. Ayodele Adewale, would like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The biggest part of this conversation still is the life and times of Rear Admiral Ndubuisi Kanu. Of course, our condolences to his wife, Gladys Ndubuisi Kanu, and of course, all his children. Thank you very much once again for joining us, and rest in peace to him.
Thank you. Admiral Kanu lives on.
Always. All right. Good morning. Thanks once again for staying with us all the way.
Yes,
we have a little bit more coming your way.
Yes, the big story about COVID-19 and vaccination is that somebody really huge in the Christian world has taken that vaccine. So we'll be seeing just how much that would influence, religious leaders globally and in Nigeria in our specific situation, maybe to change their minds on the COVID-19. Is it real? Is it not? The vaccines and all of that. Just stay tuned after this break.
Keep watching Plus Events, Plus TV Africa.
Missed out? Don't be left out as we bring to your screen your favorite social diary events on Plus Events, bringing you fun, information, and of course,